Ione and I have been friends for a while, so we will make in-jokes that will be completely over your head. We apologize in advance. No, we won't do that, actually. But I just finished her book, which I don't know if you guys have actually gotten your hands on just yet. Yay, thank you. And it's a beautiful, really intimate, really almost lyrical look at a time in her life I was really struck by how frank it was. Now, did you decide before you wanted to write that that's how you wanted it to be?
I'm kind of like that as a person. I mean, you must know that, but then a lot of people are like that when you're, hanging out, go over to your house once in a while and socialize. But there's a difference to being like that at a party and then actually writing it and giving it for everybody else. Mm-hmm. So somehow I just wanted to be honest and I wanted to do that. And now I'm like, what have I done? No, but I did. Yes, I thought about some things and I was very careful about certain things, but I feel like at this point in my life, I felt like I could handle it and take care of myself and being honest and that I'd be okay being that way.
And that the people around you would be okay?
Well, yes, I mean, that I thought about even more than myself, but yes, I gave the book to a few people and asked them, can I say this, can I say that? And some people will be reading it for the first time who are in the book. But I think I was careful with everybody, hopefully, and honest at the same time, I hope.
So how did the things come together that made you say, okay, this is the time that I'm going to write a book?
Well, there was some sort of interest. People were asking, people are interested in the 90s and being, in the 80s even. I started then. And I really did want to say everything about my interesting life. I didn't meet my father until I was like 17, and I grew up with a couple of kids who also had a similar situation with famous fathers that they were just had to get to know in their life, which I thought was interesting to write about. And there was interest in my relationship with Anthony Kiedis, and there was actually like a podcast where these women were saying, how could this have happened? And I just thought, well, I kind of want to say how it happened. Mm-hmm. And I am a weird, shy, eccentric person, so it's very satisfying for me to have people get to know how I think and how I am. And there's a few people who know me, how my sense of humor and all of these things, but not a lot of people really know my mind, and it feels really satisfying. I don't know if I'm an exhibitionist and I just like everybody knowing who I am, but...
Well, you don't seem like that. Honestly, when I first met you struck me as being somewhat similar, and to Molly Ringwald, who you know, obviously, because she keeps her own counsel. She doesn't feel the need to fill the air with words that aren't necessary. Yeah. She says things that are important and necessary, and I felt that about you as well, that you observe a little bit.
Yes. Yeah, and then I got a taste for, I don't know, something. Well, I have been getting more and more confident. And like, I've done some, sort of live, sort of podcasty things recently and a little bit of comedy here and there recently. And I kind of got a taste for being a little more kind of out there. Yeah. And so I kind of felt like doing it.
One of the things I have to say I loved about the book was it was unapologetically horny. Now, I don't know if you've gotten into it yet, but there's times you're like, oh my goodness, oh my goodness, and that is, I think, really commendable to.
I really thought about, because I really didn't want anything to be cheesy or sleazy, really. Like, I didn't want to write words that were like, ugh, or anything that was too, like, I wanted it to have the right tone. Mm-hmm. So I've thought about those scenes a lot. And I wanted to kind of hold back at certain points, but then, I don't know, I definitely thought about that a lot. But, that was part of that. I was a very kind of, that was that time, really.
Well, that was what was fascinating to me was, because I became of age just a couple years before you, and was in a lot of the same sort of situations as you. And in fact, reading the thing, I was like, oh my God, there's so many ways that we were so, it's amazing that we didn't meet until 1997. That's kind of crazy that we didn't. Because like Danny Dietz, who played the dead body in River's Edge, wonderful dead body, by the way.
Yes.
We're going to talk more about River's Edge in a minute.
Yeah.
But she was my roommate
Whoa.
for like a month and a half, and like then I did a movie with Anthony Kiedis with Flea.
Oh,
then I did a movie
right.
with Flea, and Anthony Kiedis
yeah.
would come visit and say hello.
God.
And I was like, oh my God,
We're ships crossing.
Yes,
oh my God.
and then there was so many of those things where I was
Yeah.
but my point being that in reading it and seeing your journey of doing so many, you seem to do a lot of things. I won't call it impulsive.
Yeah.
Because impulsive just means like
yes.
You're sort of like, oh, I'm going to do this just because I feel like doing it.
Right.
And that's not what I'm trying to say. I'm saying that you followed you followed your impulses in a way.
Yes.
That I really admire as a reader, and I was like, wow, she was doing stuff. She was like married to a Beastie Boy by the time I was leasing a car. You were.
Well, yes, yeah. Well, that lined up like after I had a young relationship with Anthony Kiedis, and that was very hard. And then when I met Adam Horovitz, he was such a cozy, sweet person, and I've learned that I like being married, and I had that instinct back then, and I think I wanted safety. So when I saw this marrying kind, he was just so great and supportive and wonderful. I just wanted that protection. But I was, I got married at 21, which is very, very young, but I wanted that, but I should have just been in college, just like experimenting and being, because I couldn't maintain it. But that did teach me, having a taste of that I like being married, and so I'm married now and I like it. But yeah, I was just doing it all so young. But I think you were working I don't know.
I was working, but I wasn't doing things like you would go off and go to another country and date Anthony Kiedis and by the way, we say date. No, you were enmeshed in a deeply it ended up being, unfortunately, a dysfunctional relationship, but it was obviously a deeply felt relationship on both sides.
Yeah. I think I was doing things. I thought I was older than I was. I must have. I really did. But yeah, I know it was like playing house a little bit, getting married at that age. Yeah. We were talking backstage just about how now the age difference between you and Anthony Kiedis is sort of a much bigger sort of talking point. And we were thinking, well, God, back in the 80s, for some reason, we were trying to sort of figure out what was the cultural difference then that made us just not even think about that stuff. That now we go, oh gosh. Do you look back on that relationship and think, well, there was a power imbalance that... Yeah. I mean, I think there was a slight awareness about it, but definitely not the way it is now. And for sure, it felt like an imbalance, especially because his personality, he's a more demonstrative personality than I was. I was just like very ethereal and just sort of, whatever, like whimsical. I don't know. But I think it's, now people would be saying what's going on here maybe, But yeah, it was around a lot. I mean, I didn't have a lot of friends dating old, but I guess I did. That's the thing. It wasn't okay, but it was just like around more. People didn't really...
Yeah, no, I remember I had a member of my family who was in a very similar, 16, 17-year-old girl, 24, 25-year-old man. And at the time, I think it had something to do with the 70s. We were just talking about this. That the 70s, there was this sexual revolution where only the uncool people weren't into sex, and they were always trying to be super duper sexually mature.
Yeah. It was so different.
That was something that everybody aspired to.
Yeah,
then.
So many people of my, I was born in 1970, like a lot of women I talked to, we all had our first sex like at a really young age. Like we, you know, and it's weird that time, the Gen X generation is a very different generation to now. Kids are definitely doing it later, which is good.
Yeah.
Because it's like you try. After that, I was like, that I don't want to do that for a long. I waited a while after that, but yeah, it's definitely weird how, you know, we just were precocious. I don't know why. I feel like I listened to a podcast all about why the Gen X generation were like that, and now I've forgotten. But it was a different time.
Now
yeah,
we're
now
elderly
kids
and
are.
we forget
It's just
things.
different. It's yeah. Now it's a little different, I think.
Well, I wanted to get back to River's Edge because that was a very sort of very dark, you know, it signaled a new kind of teen movie at the time, because I had done Pretty in Pink and Breakfast Club had come out, and there was this sort of John Hughes look at teenagers that was saying, hey, teenagers can be incredibly articulate, almost too articulate, you know, in some of those movies, and you know, it was a slice of, you know, real suburban life. And then River's Edge was this incredibly dark story about a young man who kills his girlfriend and then brings his friends to see the body, and nothing. It was based on a true story.
Yeah,
I recall.
yeah. And then no one did anything, but Keanu Reeves and I were the heart and soul of the story, one article said, but barely.
Yes, it was a pretty dark
we sort of
heart.
begrudgingly told the cops at the last minute or something. But yeah, apathy, like these kids who didn't know really how to connect with their feeling of right and wrong.
Yeah.
Because they were very latchkey kids in a sort of, you know, kind of world and atmosphere where the parents weren't around a lot and thing, you know. Yeah, the tone, that was a new thing for a teen movie.
Yeah, for a teen movie. Because the successful
yeah.
teen movies had been 16 Candles and,
Sure,
you know,
I know.
Fast Times at Ridgemont High, which is, by the way, an amazing movie. If you haven't seen it in a while, check it out again. Holds up great.
Yes.
Not all of them do.
No, I rewatched that too.
But I have to. Another thing, again, as I said, as I was reading this, I just admire, like, it took me a long time to learn how to be a movie actor. I had been a theater actor for a long time, but you just leapt right into movie acting, which is actually really technical. So what was it like for you, like on the first day of the shoot? I mean, was somebody saying, this is how you do it?
Yeah, I think I was, one, a natural, and two, like, you know, I wasn't a natural, but two, you know, when you're young, you remember your lines, like, so you just look at them once, so that was no problem. And I think I just was a fast learner. I just got all the technical stuff. But there's some things, like a few years ago, I was thinking maybe I should be a TV director because a lot of women were becoming TV directors at this time. And so someone suggested I shadow 3 TV directors, and you were doing a 3-camera sitcom.
Yes, I was doing, was it Disjointed,
Disjointed.
Maybe? It was a Kathy Bates starring in owning a pot dispensary sitcom. It's on Netflix.
Yeah.
It's still around if you want to see
so
it.
I went on this set of Love and then something else just to watch, like, and I was, you know, see maybe I wanted to do this. And that is something, after I left, I was like, I still don't know what you were doing as a director. Because it's like, I still could not talk about like technical. I just couldn't understand. And I know it's a mental block because someone could explain, oh no, this is what I do, you just do this. You, I think, said, you were explaining what you were doing, which is so nice that you're always doing favors for me. It's so nice. But anyway, that's something but as far as being an actor, just going from high school and then on a movie set and being the lead, I don't know, I just loved it actually, and was really insecure because I was like, do you know I've never done anything, and what if you kick me out? But I don't know, I think I was young enough to kind of just get absorbed in it, the story.
Yeah, because my very first movie was a Robert Altman movie, and it was and I'm only bringing this up in that it was the easiest thing to learn because he just rolls the camera and just lets everybody go and improv stuff, which I was like, this is great.
Yeah,
this is easy. And then on the next movie, they were like, oh no, you have to hit marks, you have to get very specific focal lengths, you have to, there's all these very technical aspects to it.
Well, I was like one of those, it just would go in me and then I would never not do it that way. I don't know, I was just like, remembered, you know what I mean? This is how it's done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so okay, so this is your first time working with Keanu Reeves. You guys have never worked together again,
No,
right?
no.
Okay.
No. We were friendly, like on a little bit, but no, never.
Yes, he was already a very buzzy actor at the time. I remember people at auditions saying, "Hey, there's this guy,"
Yeah.
you know, da 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 da.
Yeah.
And you know, obviously that was the thing that made everybody go, "Damn, that guy's."
Yes, exactly.
Good.
Yeah, he was, you could tell that the producers and everyone they were like really excited to have Keanu in the movie.
Yeah.
And it was, he hadn't done much, but he had that even before. Because some actors, you know, they have to do like so much stuff for finally you to like remember their name and their face. You know, there's people, they're like, people are like, who is that? And you're like, they've only been in these many movies. He was the person, like, even before he was, like, in anything, they're like, oh, yes, Keanu Reeves. Keanu Reeves.
Some people just have that.
Yeah.
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 And another thing that's, again, lovely about the book is you just, you have a spirit of experimentation that I admire in terms of, you're like, well, I met that guy, I really liked him, so we fooled around, you know. and you know, that was so not my experience of the 80s. But you know, but it's interesting because you, in the book, you sort of allude to that it might have had something to do with trying to bring somebody into your life because of the bigger issue of your
yeah. I mean, when I started writing the book, I was like, what are the themes? You know, you're starting to kind of think about what is this about, really, and I was like, wow, I don't want to say love addict, but I'm like really looking, I've definitely always wanted like a therapy dog in the form of a person with me, you know, and sometimes it would be a best friend and we would be just like heavenly creatures, just like always like together, just, you know, in our own fantasy world. Like I was friends with Moon Zappa and she and I just we're just like in a, you know, fantasy. In fact, yesterday, I did the Drew Barrymore show, and Drew was like, I was at the Zappas, and you and Moon were always in, like, Victorian bloomers running around. I was like, we were in, like, a Victorian, just wanted to be old Victorian ladies. We were very eccentric. But, yeah, I think I just always wanted, so I really always wanted, like, a love interest or a boyfriend or, at one point, girlfriends. Like, I couldn't be alone until my first marriage kind of fell apart. And then I was alone and lucky enough to live in New York City in my 20s, which was fabulous. But that was kind of the first time I was like appropriately doing what a 20-something-year-old person, you know, could be doing. Like just living in an apartment and living my life. But yeah, I must have I just felt nervous and insecure unless I had some romance thing going on.
Yeah. Well, another thing I loved about the book is you really interrogate the idea of somebody who is famous because they're a father who they have not even met is this iconic figure in music. There's a bunch of things that people sort of put on you, you know, and there's always this thing hanging over you, but that you had nothing to do with.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if this is what you're saying, but I remember like when I first was getting asked in interviews, I was a teenager, 15, 16, oh, your father's Donovan, what was that like? And I was like, oh, I didn't grow up with him, but I grew up with my mom, and it was really great. And that's what I wanted to say. I wanted to like kind of, not necessarily protect him, but I just didn't want to go into it. I didn't want it to be a bad thing to talk about. Like I just didn't want, I don't know. And then I had to kind of really deal with it. But yeah, having a kind of shamanic father figure who's, you know, incredible, and it's weirder than maybe just having a dad who's not around. But even I've heard like having famous parents who are around, it can be kind of a thing. But I don't know. But yeah, mine was not around. Is that what you meant?
That is, yes. Well, it's interesting because obviously Karis and Amelia Fleetwood.
Yes.
You end up being very close friends with women who've also gone through a very similar.
Yeah. There's a great moment in the book, if I do say so myself.
But I do something wonderful where.
But I do love this moment where I'm with Amelia Fleetwood, whose dad is Mick Fleetwood, and we're already like 20 or 19, and we go hang out with him, and her mother's this woman, Jenny Boyd, who's like kind of fabulous in her own right. And they're, separated, but they have some sort of semblance of a family. And I was just like, this is so great. Like, why couldn't this have happened for me? Like, mine was, out of all of three of them, Karis's father, Mick Jagger, she had a bigger relationship with him than I did. So mine was like the most, I was just studying them, and I was really close with them and just very curious. I've always been intrigued with children of Nepo babies now, but but I'm just like, I find I'm like, Griffin Dunn or whoever, I'm like, almost like as if they're I don't know why, I'm intrigued by them, maybe because I'm one of them, I don't know. Mm-hmm. I find them kind of like fascinating.
Well, because it's an interesting life path, because you're influenced by something, but you have to cut your own path at the same time.
Yeah, and now it's kind of nice because there's not this sort of, used to be kind of a problem, but like, who did like Schitt's Creek, like now people work with their children. Mm-hmm. Well, it's like, doesn't feel like it's not like, sure, like if this show works, let's work together. But you do still have to, there's definitely a lot of children of who don't go into the business. Mm-hmm. But you definitely have to prove yourself for sure.
Yeah, and well, because it's my parents were performers as well.
Yeah.
And I did get, when I think about it, it's like there were things that I did get help with because they were my parents, but they would never see it that way because they were struggling actor/playwrights,
Yeah.
So they never felt like they, like it was nepotism, but. I did have the help of, I knew their community, I knew that world, I felt comfortable in it. If I go into an audition, I'm much more comfortable than somebody who's never done it before.
Yeah.
So,
but
it's a very specific life.
Yeah.
Now, I also have to say that my personal favorite teen comedy of the 80s/90s was Say Anything.
Really? I never knew that. Mm-hmm. Oh my God, thank you. I didn't know that. That's amazing.
Holds up so beautifully, and it's because it's a beautiful story. Can you tell a little story in the book about the actual, like when I heard what the actual genesis of it for Cameron was, I was very surprised, but it makes total sense once you.
Yeah, so I know I didn't know at first either. He didn't I guess James Brooks, who produced it, saw a father and daughter walking together, and the dad did something really sweet, like, brushed aside a glass on the road and like helped her, and then James Brooks was like, that father and daughter is so sweet, but what if the dad is like really kind of not such a good guy, which is so interesting. I think about that sometimes with like mobsters. I'm like, they're so nice to their family, but they're doing all this crazy stuff. Anyway, and then he said to Cameron, write a story about that. That would be a hard assignment.
And that's not a teen romance.
That's right.
That's
like
that story is what Say Anything actually
right.
is.
Yeah, and then
but it was, to us, it resonates as a teen romance.
Yeah, I know. So I wonder when it became more about the teen part.
Well, you guys were just great.
Yeah, our chemistry was so good.
Yeah,
we really got along so well. I have
to go. Was he a dreamboat?
Well, you do.
John Cusack.
John Cusack. Do you know him? I think. Do you know him?
I've met him a few times.
Yeah,
he's lovely.
He was just so bright, and he had this theater company with Tim Robbins, called
it was not blank, not
children.
Shoot.
Anyway, he and Tim Robbins had this political
done some research.
Genius theater company at the time. And that might still be going, I think, because I did see something of theirs pretty recently. And when I saw one of those plays that John Cusack and Tim Robbins we saw something not far from here, I was like, these guys are so bright, so interesting. That was the only time I thought I had a crush on him in real life, John Cusack, because when somebody's so bright and talented, you're like, oh, I love them. But mainly we just loved talking, and he treated me like an equal, which he should, but I don't know why I have to even say that. But I was also in awe of him, and Joan Cusack was in it.
Joan Cusack.
Right? Yeah.
Right.
Applaud
Yes,
for
thank
Joan
you.
Cusack.
Applause for Joan Cusack.
But I was very,
miss Joan Cusack.
yeah, I was very intimidated. And Lily Taylor, if you know,
Yes,
she was in
Lily
it.
Taylor.
Yay.
Joe Lies.
Yes.
Joe Lies.
So I came in feeling very insecure. I thought these people are just brilliant and comedic and just deep and all of this. And I was really nervous, but I felt pretty good once we started.
And it was so funny to read that you felt like the most daunting challenge for you was appearing smart.
Oh, yeah.
Because you're a very
Yeah.
smart person.
Aw, thank
so to
you.
your friends, that
Well,
that
I
seems
left
ridiculous.
school. I left school, and they used to emancipate kids, which was something.
Yes, I read about it.
Yeah.
Like they didn't
It was just a
emancipate
thing,
me.
and so-
Apparently, I wasn't worth emancipation.
But that meant you didn't get tutoring, and you just
Yeah,
basically
you
like,
could work
oh,
crazy long
just
hours.
get a
and
GED if you want. But it was like, okay. But yeah, so I knew I was smart, but that made me insecure for a long time. But I got over that. But I for many years felt very insecure about not graduating. But yeah, now I'm over it.
Yeah, I didn't go to. I was enrolled in college, and then I got my first gig, and I just took the gig and never went to college, and I feel the same way. So
Yeah, I mean, I guess I did. If my career had just been like that was it, like one hit wonder, I would have gone back to school. But it was just undeniably going, and the projects were so good. I think it would have been a different story if I was on a kind of like one of those, whatever, something that was sort of not a good experience for kids or whatever. I was a teen, but mine were thankfully, good. So anyway, I was self-taught.
yeah. So I wanted to ask you about the process of writing it. Did you I did a memoir a few years ago, and I realized I gotta ask people stuff because did you ask around?
I had a lot of journals, but yes, and sometimes you ask people and they also don't remember anything.
Yeah.
So it's like
It's all gone.
you have to remember. It was. Yes, I definitely asked a lot of people from back then.
Moms are very helpful.
Moms are very helpful, and even Googling, like when you knew you were at a certain year in London and you were doing this, and just also because writing it, you want to fill in the scene and make it like. I sort of approached it a little bit like scenes, so filling in the details. So.
Oh my God! And some of the details, she remembers the brands of the parka that somebody was wearing. I mean, from 30 years. At one point, I was like, "This was in 1991."
Yeah, but that is also a little bit of Googling because it probably was. Some were true, but some I'm like, I can say Clinique. Like if I'm like looking at someone's lipstick and like that's very 80s Clinique,
Clinique
so
was,
I did sort of. I don't know if it was really Clinique, but that was fitting. So.
But yeah, it was very evocative.
Yes, good. Yeah, so I did remember a lot. I have a pretty good long-term memory. Not as good, like I can't tell you. I will have to think for a while, like what I did. For New Year's last year, I'd take a second and then I'd remember. But I can get myself back there emotionally, and that's what someone said. If you kind of remember it. By feelings and stuff, that was kind of helpful.
Did everybody just say, no, that just didn't happen?
Yeah, I think my brother did a couple of things. He sort of like that's not right.
And somehow I didn't meet your brother, by the way.
That's
I don't know how
even more mysterious.
Because your brother is like
my brother's,
the social butterfly.
Yeah,
he was everywhere.
he's in the book a lot.
He was famously everywhere.
Yeah, and he was just connected to everybody and helped me restart my career at times just by. Oh, there's this movie Allison Anders is doing. She's really cool. You should audition for this thing. And I hadn't heard about it for some reason, and he just was so connected. So he was he knows everybody. That's wild that you guys never hung out. Anyway, look at it. Well, here we are now.
Yes. Did you feel like did the themes? Did you start out wanting to tell the story you told, or did that evolve as you wrote it?
I just started with chapters, and then that's what I hung everything on. And that they pretty much stayed, the decision is, do you just take one part of your life and you do a kind of like, Patti Smith does Just Kids, where it's like this relationship in this certain part. But then I just thought I want it to be like just a straightforward memoir. There's like the ones that go basically. I started with my mom, and I could have written just a memoir with my mother, who's here over there. But I could have done that, and I wrote tons about my mom, but I narrowed it down. But yeah, I just sort of started birth, and then wrapped it up until now. But yeah, it was such a great, I really liked it, but I was thinking the other day about doing it all over again if there was another one for some reason. And I guess it's probably like when directors, after they finish a movie, they're like, oh my God, I'm never doing that again. Like while I was doing it, I loved it, to be honest. But then thinking of it again, I'm just like, wow, could I ever do that again? It's so much work.
Yes, it is a lot of work. Did you have anybody, like when I wrote mine, there was a story I told about a friend of mine, a summer camp, who was my roommate, and he was gay and this and that. And the legal department at Penguin called me and said, can you check and see if he's still gay?
Oh, yeah.
And I was like, how do I do that? And so I called him up and I said,
God.
hey, man, it's been a while. You still gay? And he said, let me ask my husband. So that was a lovely moment.
Oh, that is so funny. Yeah, the legal stuff is fascinating because it's different it's coming out in the UK. It's different in the UK. It's more strict.
Yes, the libel laws are very...
So if something's public, basically, or if you know something about somebody, you can say it, I believe. But I mean, not that I would. Believe it or not, this book has a lot in it, but I didn't say everything. but I said a lot. But they combed through it. And a couple names were changed, but mainly it was all right. It was kind of interesting that I was surprised that most of the stuff was okay. But yeah, I didn't, who did I ask? I asked a couple of people, are you comfortable with this? But yeah, that's a funny story though. Let me ask my husband.
Yes. So now, what was the hardest part for you to write? Because you said it was a really joyful.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I guess I liked the hard working part for some reason. But yes, I loved revisiting like really fun parts of my childhood. But yeah, in going through the edits, there were certain parts that I found myself rushing through, and then not taking time. So that would be the Anthony part, like kind of the obvious parts, like the Anthony part. Probably that, and pretty much
the
that.
Anthony part?
Yeah, thank you.
Okay,
That's
so
it.
got it. Because the marriage to Adam Horovitz part
that's
is
very hard too.
Painful for the reader.
Oh yeah,
because you're just like, oh, I just want them to work so bad.
I know. For some reason maybe
and that's terrible because I love your husband.
I
think your
now
husband is awesome.
No.
So I had very mixed
lucky.
feelings.
Oh no, for sure. No, I can't. After Adam, I just thought, well, I had that. That was great. I had an amazing husband. Maybe now. It's funny, I had an Aunt Evelyn who found love again. She remarried, but at 60, and her second marriage, she was like even happier. And I just thought, maybe when I'm 60, I'll have what Aunt Evelyn had. And then I pretty soon after that met Ben, who's like, I've got like the most amazing marriage. I mean, I'm so lucky. Not like you get punished for ruining one thing, but I mean, I just feel like I have good taste. Once I got the shenanigans out of the way.
Well, everybody has to get that out of their system.
Yeah.
And it was interesting also that you were so forthright about being with other people while you were with him.
Yeah, I know. I felt worried about that. But he was, so we were so young. I mean, I was 21, he was 24. And then I was like, probably shouldn't have been married anymore or just at all. But Yeah, and he knew a little bit. I started dating women, and then he knew because one was like some were like sort of people hanging around our scene, and he was like, all of a sudden you're wanting to go out. You're doing this, like, what's going on? And so he was patient. He kind of waited it out a minute, and then it finally was like, it wasn't stopping. So it was a time when like Madonna and Sandra Bernhardt were like going around, and it was all very, and my friends, everyone's girls were kissing girls. And then like after a few years, my friends they stopped kissing girls, and I was like, I keep wanting to do this.
Still kissing girls.
I was just trying to figure out why. Like I was in therapy, and I'm like, well, I wonder what this is. What is this?
Well, it's great to kiss girls.
Yeah.
They're awesome.
The therapist's like, I don't know, it's nice.
Why not?
But then finally it wasn't wrapping up, and we separated. But I realized I went from this big, working at 15 onwards, huge intense relationship with Anthony, right into Adam, right into getting married and buying a house, which was amazing, but still a lot going on, and work, and I never went to clubs. Like I was never that kind of kid. Like I didn't really go out. Then all of a sudden I find myself in New York and in LA, like in the night, getting into the 90s, and my brother's with the models in New York, and all of a sudden I start going out. And, Adam was like, I kind of did this at Danceteria, and I did all this New York, I was in the East Village and all this stuff. Like, you haven't done this. You need to do this. And I was like, no, I want to be married to you. But I didn't have that. So that was my time to do all that. And, but then I spent many years, like, feeling like I missed being with him because he was so great. So it was painful.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
So, okay, so we're up to, so the meeting Ben part, which was towards the very end of the book, and again, I know so many people in the book that it was wonderful to see them portrayed as well. It was really fun. But she has a wonderful sense of empathy for everybody in it, which I think is, that sort of generosity as an author is really lovely. But it's so fascinating to that the first guy who really stopped you up short was Ben. Who really, sort of set a boundary.
Yes, that's what I sort of liked about Ben. I did have some friends who had boundaries, but not many.
But honestly, as a reader, I'm jealous of that. I was like, wow, I was such a square.
No, we just attracted each other. We were just this group of people like that, and I did have one friend who I really admired, my friend Maya, who always just was like normal, and I just thought that's so great. I would love to be able to talk that way and not like, if she didn't want to go out, she'd be like, no, I'm going to stay home. And like we all were just like never really saying things straightforwardly, and just like, I don't know, we were just so weird. But Ben, I always loved that he was very just like took care of himself, and even things that, this is very, like he always wore a condom, whatever, like things that like our group, which I was like, I want this. I want someone who's sane, you know what I mean? Like not just like what you were saying, like the 70s, that kind of style. But I was like, once we were together, we were friends, Ben and I, for a long time, I was like, this is on. Let's just like have this crazy romance. And he was like, calm down, like, I'm trying to get to know you. So that was really hard, but really good, because I just thought, I want something that is like steady and normal, and I got it all because he's together and organized and like that, but also very creative.
Boundlessly
creative and fun.
If you hang out with Ben, her husband, for any length of time, you will be drafted into doing something artistic. And I was hanging out with him for 10 minutes. He was like, hey, you want to direct a thing I wrote? I was like, well, okay.
He's
sure.
slowing down slightly. He's starting to, so he might not enlist you, but he's super fun, and he's a little younger, and he has, just this like younger, also he brings in like kind of younger people too, which is really fun.
Yes, it makes you not feel old.
Yeah, exactly.
Because if everybody you're with is talking about their ailments, that's when you go, okay.
Yes, I'm just sucking the
I'm
life out of their life
old.
force. Sit next to me.
But and obviously having children has been a huge change.
Yeah. And
for
I
you.
think part of it was I had a kid before Ben, and I was single, and I that's something I also like. Don't I always like think single moms. That's so amazing. And then Ben was like, "You were a single mom." I'm like, "Really?"
That was
Like,
me.
oh yeah, I guess I was a single mom. Like for some reason, but I was very hooked up. Like I had a co-parenting.
Yes, and again, that's a really interesting
Yeah,
relationship
that's a
in
wild
the
relationship.
in the book.
Yeah. So partly having Kate, my first kid, helped me also make a really great choice with Ben, because you want somebody who's going to be great with your kid.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, what struck me about Kate's father, David Netto, who I don't know David Netto, but was that it was such an unusual arrangement from the beginning.
Well, let me say, so if and when you read the book, you think my life is like finally calming down, and then the craziest, it sounds insane, but I always, growing up bohemian, I always loved preppy, and I just, was enamored by people who had money, and, because I just was not like that, and superficial, I think I was. But I had never really been set up on a date before, believe it or not, because as you explained, our group was always, you do a movie and you hook up with this person and everyone's all around and everything, whatever. So my good friend, who I really trusted, I was starting to want to be married again at that point. I didn't have kids. I was just divorced long enough where I was like, I feel like I want that again. And she said, I have somebody you should meet. He's, she described this sort of incredible person who had a lot of family money and was intelligent, but he was interesting and he wasn't douchey and all these things.
And handsome, by the way.
Very handsome.
Very handsome.
And Upper East Side, whatever. And I was intrigued. So I met him, and he is quite when he wants something to happen, he makes it happen. So he was we had a few conversations, went on a few dates, and he was like, I really want to get married and I really want to have kids. And I was like, so do I. I got pregnant very fast. And although we had a mutual friend that we'd both known for a long time, who I really love and trust, it's insane. The quickness of that.
That's what's
was
striking in
mental.
the book. Because he literally says, we should get married and have a kid. And
I literally
boom.
a week, I was
Next day.
ovulating. I was I know I'm pregnant. I just could tell. And then we got engaged, and then I was like, this is not, it was not a match, which was terrible.
Yeah, but
and
you wanted the same thing for a moment.
We wanted the same thing
there was
for
a
a moment, but it wasn't good. And then it's turned out great. Everything is still good, but as friends. But it was insane, because there's this one point where I'm crying pregnant in the bathroom, just thinking I'm going to have a baby without, the dad, he'll be around because he turns out to be very dutiful and super, generous and a very dutiful, great dad. But I was like, oh my God, my mom must have been in a bathroom at one point with me, pregnant, crying, saying, oh no, I'm going to not have a dad and have this kid. And I was having the same experience. How weird is that? It's the cycle of whatever. Yeah. But the good thing was, thankfully, my instinct in picking him, he's a good father. And we're still friends, and so that's good. But yeah, it's great. That scares me when I think of how fast that was. But it's all worked out.
But well, what's wonderful is in the book you get your acceptance of all of that stuff becomes very apparent, and that becomes very powerful, I think.
Yeah, I think what people are responding to is the non-judgmentalness. I think that there's something about it that feels good in that way, reading it. I mean, it's very fun. It's like a page turner.
It
People
is
are
fun.
like, I sat down. Some people are saying they're dyslexic or they haven't even read a book in like 5 years. And they're like, I couldn't stop reading. I stayed up till 1 in the morning. You know, I'm like, great. Or someone said something nice that it's almost like binging like Netflix, like every chapter, like what's next? Like it's just turned out like that. I'm so happy.
Because it's unapologetically horny.
It's so much horniness. No, but it's yeah. So I think there's something about the non-judgmentalness, and also I'm so in my own experience.
Yes.
And I sort of, while I was young, I'm sort of writing from those feelings, and then they become more the feelings I was having. So yeah, anyway, I think that's maybe partly why it feels okay, even when parts of it are like, oh, is she going to be okay? Is she going to land?
Well, I think, I'm still really grateful that I wrote a book, and I think it's going to be, well, thank you. That's
Yes,
kind of
no, I read your book at a time when I was on a vacation that I was very unhappy about, and it's a long story, but I was in a weird
vacation that
space.
you're unhappy about.
No, it was a weird situation, and your book made me so happy, especially because I was like, it was all I had, and I was so happy. Anyway, I love your book.
Thank you.
Love it.
Well, and I loved yours.
Pick up his one too,
well.
if you haven't already. Anyway, go on.
But my point is, I having lived with it a few years, I'm really
Yeah.
grateful for it.
Yeah.
Because there are times when I just need to remind myself of my narrative of like, what's the journey I'm taking through life? And then
yeah.
you'll always have this
Yeah.
really lovely thing.
Yeah, that's so true.
So I think we're going to have some questions
Oh.
if anybody has some.
Ione, one of my favorite films of yours is The Rachel Papers. Just an incredibly smart, very sexy film. Tell us your reminiscence of that.
Well, I was very excited about that. The Rachel Papers is based on a Martin Amis book, and I'd already read it, which was I was just very excited. And I wasn't good at auditioning at that point in my life, but I was great at meetings. So I was like, if I could get this director to just like, I need to work with you. So I think I had a great meeting, and then I did the audition. I got the part. And it was fun. James Spader was in it. How fun. Have you worked?
He was in Pretty in Pink.
That's right. Duh.
Yes.
I mean,
and the crazy thing about him is he's fantastic as an asshole, and he's like the coolest guy.
Yes.
He's lovely.
yeah. I mean, I'm like, of course. You really, yeah. So that was great. And to work with him, I was so excited. And being in London, like some people love this movie just also as a time capsule of London at that time. How movies like just get a moment in time. And yeah, I really liked it. I love the director. He's the son of Richard Harris, Damien Harris, and Jared Harris.
So Jared Harris is his brother.
Yeah, so it was also, and John Mahoney. No, not John Mahoney.
That's saying anything.
No, the actor from, he had just done Dangerous Liaisons. John Malkovich.
Oh, he's
he
good.
Was friends. He wasn't in it. But he had just finished that movie, and he was still wearing his like cravat or whatever. But he came to visit us in London, and because he was friends with the director. So anyway, all these other stories around that were really fun because I was just like so excited to have a couple like dinners with him. And anyway, but it was a great experience, and I felt. There was a little too many. The sex scenes were like we shot them for maybe a week, and by the like fourth day, I was like, I am not feeling like doing this anymore. But it was great.
It was a time before intimacy coordinators. There were
Yes.
literally people paid to choreograph that stuff now and to make sure everybody's cool
now
with
they
it.
check in with you like every 4 seconds.
Yeah, then it was.
You still okay? Are you still okay?
Yeah.
Are you still okay?
Then it was the jungle. It was the law of the jungle.
They would clear, they cleared out some crew, but no one. It was more just like not making eye contact and just let's get this done. And now the coordinator calls you the night before, and they're just like which is great. It's amazing.
It's this incredibly awkward situation doing sex scenes at all.
Yes. No, it's not.
Thankfully,
not.
I don't get asked to do that. Do we have another one?
Hi, guys. Ione, my absolute favorite movie of yours, kind of in the same vein as his, is Dream for an Insomniac.
Oh.
It had so many iconic lines, and it was just mushy love stuff, and I wanted to hear about your experience with that.
Yeah, that was great. That was, I was doing this movie, 4 Rooms, and there was a PA who wrote a script, and I thought, okay. And it turned out that she was an amazing writer, and her dad owned the 49ers, but Tiffany Bartolo. Anyway, so she got to make this movie, and I'm like a little bit like, talk about Nepo baby, like, okay, you know, this person is getting funded for this movie. She's so talented. It was really incredible. She got the best, you know, people, the cast and everything, Seymour Cassell, which is so fun. We shot in San Francisco, which is kind of unusual. I feel like it's like expensive to shoot there, maybe.
Yeah, but it's a great place
Great
visually.
backdrop, absolutely. Yeah. I just feel like lucky that I got to do that at all. But yeah, it was really, you know, now looking back, like all those, yeah, just getting to star and all those so many scenes I got to be in. You know, now I'm like doing more ensemble lately. But yeah, that was a really nice shoot, really fun. But yeah, it was a smart script.
Thanks for a great conversation. How did the two of you eventually meet, and what experiences did you bond over to become friends?
I produced independent films for a little while in New York City, and I produced a micro-budget indie. And in those kind of situations, you're begging people to be a part of it. And some people are amazing and graceful and get what you're trying to do with your weird little indie script, and some people don't. One of them that do is Ione Skye, who agreed to do a part in the movie for, you know, I mean, just, you got to understand, when you're shooting a no-budget indie, all the niceties that you're used to just go away, and everybody has to just be there to have fun and try and make something good. And finding people who are on board for that is rare, and she 100% was. So I'm still grateful for that. Do you want me to? Can I tell the story?
Oh, you can tell this story. That's almost more painful than my most painful stories in the book. I hate that.
Okay, then I won't tell it.
No, you can. It sounds worse than it is.
No, I'm sorry. I'm loading this up too much. But we had a little bit of an adventure because you know, we're a micro-budgeted show. Her first day of shooting is a wedding scene. It's the most expensive scene in the movie is the wedding scene.
So bad.
And because we've got 100 extras, and we got costumes, and we got catering, and we got, you know, this is, you know, and we're over the moon that she has agreed to do this thing. We don't have time to rehearse. We don't have any, you know, and the night before we're supposed to shoot, her agent calls up and says, "Okay, we don't know where Ione is." And that was because Ione was moving to New York at that time.
Yes.
By the way, I'm telling this story, and understand none of this was Ione's fault at all. But you had moved from Los Angeles.
I got the day wrong, or what happened?
No, what happened was, you were moving from Los Angeles to New York.
Right.
So you had disconnected your Los Angeles
Oh,
phone, so
okay,
nobody
that's
could
right.
give you the date.
God,
that
okay,
was the
that's right.
problem.
Okay.
So you didn't get the date.
I
so
blocked out why, because I hate being late. I know I seem flaky, but I hate.
She's not
I
flaky.
don't like it. I'm not flaky.
She's not
but
flaky.
That killed me. That I like messed up this.
No,
half a day
well,
from-
but you didn't. But that's the funny thing.
But
so
we
at any rate,
survived our friendship.
So, no, so she so her agent says, "I don't know where Ione is." And we're like, well, we have to shoot tomorrow. And she's like, you don't understand. The agent says she's rock solid. Everybody knows that. And she does have a magnificent reputation for being, you know, rock solid about stuff. And so she said, you know, trust me, she'll be there. I was like, okay, great. So we show up the next morning, the wedding's already, there's extras again, everybody's getting into costume, the catering's out, and he calls me again, your agent calls me again and says, we still don't know where she is.
I hate this story.
I'm sorry, I'm so
okay,
sorry.
okay.
So we sent somebody to your new apartment. They knocked on the door, and nobody was home.
Oh.
So,
totally blocked
so I
this
called
story.
your mom, who's here now, and nobody had your new number. Nobody had your new New York number. So somebody, and I don't know who it was, was like somebody knew your brother lived in town. And they thought, okay, well, let's try to find the brother. So I'm panicking. So I've got two cell
my
phones.
God.
I've got one cell phone where I'm talking to Ione's agent, who's saying, if you have to cast somebody else, and I'm like, cast somebody else?
my God.
I'm supposed to. I'm in
It's
Far
like,
Rockaway.
I have another actress.
Who am I
right
gonna? So I called up another agent who, there was we did hold auditions at one point, and there was somebody, and maybe she'll be available. I have no idea. So I'm calling her, panicking. I'm yelling at your agent, and he's being, by the way, super cool and incredibly apologetic. And I'm sitting there with two phones, and the director is standing next to me. He's freaking out as well. And then we were right next to Coney Island, so there's all kinds of oddballs. And this guy walks by while I'm screaming on two phones at once, and he has no ear. There's just a hole where his ear is supposed to be. And he just walks by silently, and both the director and I are struck silent, standing there for a second. And I look over at the director, and he says to me very solemnly, he goes, "I wept that I had no cell phone until I met a man who had no ear." And that pause, though, was incredibly important because just then a PA came over and said, "We found Ione. She's at her brother's house." And you were on the set and ready to go within about 45 minutes.
Ugh.
So we only lost maybe an hour and a half for the day.
Oh, that's so good. That makes me so happy.
Sorry, but that's
I'm
how we
glad
met.
it was only an hour and a half, but it took years off your life.
Yes.
So.
So I'm sorry. I'm sorry
No,
that I this
you
is the,
don't need to be sorry. I still feel bad. That was only 30 years ago, and I feel terrible.
No, don't feel terrible.
All right.
Hey, sorry to revisit the Rachel papers, but did you keep up with Dexter Fletcher, who went on to direct Bohemian Rhapsody and is a pretty major talent?
Yeah. We were friends for a while after that. Dexter Fletcher, who's so great, and he was the only boy I had a poster on my wall because I loved this movie Caravaggio that he was in. He was a child actor. He was in The Elephant Man, and he was in Bugsy Malone. Remember? I don't know.
The Bounty, Mel Gibson.
The Mel Gibson movie, yeah.
Yeah, he did that. In Bugsy Malone, there was a scene where the kids are, "Get Babyface, get Babyface, get Babyface," and then he says, "Get Babyface." He goes, "What am I saying? I am Babyface." But it was a child actor that I loved, and I was like, I get to work with Dexter Fletcher. But yeah, we didn't stay in touch. But briefly, I heard he rented a house across the street from me. So I put a letter in the mailbox and never heard anything. So probably someone was like, "What is this letter?" But I didn't know how to instead of doing it by normal channels, I was like, I'll just see if he's. But I haven't seen him in a while. But I love him. He's great. Happy for him.
So this is going to seem like a direct question, but you have a pattern of marrying rock stars, and I'm just curious, what's up with that?
I know. I think. I guess one could say, "Oh, well, your father's a musician." One reason I like musicians is I just like being around that creativity. And anytime I've dated an actor, I felt like it's too close to home. I don't want to see someone else reading a script.
Boring.
I'm doing that. But and I don't know. I was like, am I a frustrated musician or why? What is this? But yeah, I guess it's not that uncommon, right? Actors and musician couples. Must be something about that. But yeah, I think I do. But it's not necessarily bad boy because Adam wasn't that way and Ben's not. They're not like your classic bad boy. But I love being around music and musicians. It's nice. Yeah.
Yes, being on the set with an icon like Dennis Hopper, I just have to ask, did you walk away with anything, any words of wisdom or any memories of that experience at all?
Yeah, I mean, he was in a very straight, we didn't believe, the director said for the table read, he was like, "You'll be surprised." We all thought he'd be coming in on a
Easy
hard,
rider.
easy
Yeah.
rider, long. But he was like, he's cleaned up, and he came in a suit. I feel like even a briefcase, and we were all oh my God. But he was terrific, and then after Viggo Mortensen, is that how to say his name? Mortensen my friend was dating him, and he was good friends with Dennis Hopper, who had a place in Venice. So that was really fun to go to his place in Venice and hang out with him.
You went to Dennis Hopper's place?
Yes.
That's awesome.
I know, but I think we were all just like studying him, but he was very quiet and he is quiet, or was, but in person he was just very gentle and quiet. And I learned later reading, Easy Rider, like hearing all the stories of what a maniac, I knew he was a maniac, but I didn't know like the fighting, and I didn't know all of that stuff. I might have been more scared, but he had totally changed by the time I got to working with him.
Yeah, again, I did a movie with him, my very first movie was with him. And,
oh my God.
And again, he was sedate
Yes.
and introspective.
Yeah.
If you ever get a chance, Dennis Hopper was a wonderful photographer as
yeah.
well. And if you can
I'm sure
find
you guys
his old
know.
books of photography,
Yeah. I mean,
score them because
as
they're great.
good, as his.
And lived this amazing life. He just
Yeah.
had all these amazing people in his life.
Yeah, for sure. But yeah, those pictures are amazing. And an amazing art collection.
Well, thank you guys.
Thank you all.